So because this is pre-recorded, if there's anything that you need to, like, if we need to start over or if you want to cut, we can do that too. So
Great.
And if you regret saying something later and you want to text us and have us cut it, we can do that too.
There'll be a lot of regrets, but that'll be later. So I gotta say, I made the mistake of watching a couple of your podcasts.
Okay.
Oh,
You made the mistake. Good. That's a good
yes,
way to lead.
These are like saints of God, beautiful souls, wonderful people, caring for people, articulate, and then you invite me on. So I don't understand, but I'll do the best I can.
Welcome back to the Ministry Without Hating It podcast, a ministry of Odyssey Haven Coaching and Counseling dedicated to the pursuit of answering the question, is it possible to do ministry without hating it? We have a theory that it just might be. I am Chad Garrison. I am here with Brenton Hill. Brenton, how are you feeling on this cold fall day?
it's absolutely cold for sure, but I'm feeling great.
You haven't had the heater on in your office for about an hour at least now. Are you feeling it, or...
Can I let you in on a secret? I forgot to turn the heater off. So it's really hot in here right now.
Interesting.
My face is burning up.
I'm glad that you brought up this confession, because within this episode today with our guest, we all have a moment of confession of one way or another. And in some ways, this is a little bit of an intervention for Brenton.
Yeah.
This is what they call a tease.
I've got a lot of work to do.
Brenton in the biz, this is what they call a tease.
Okay.
So people were like, "Oh, well, let's get on with it.
Let's do it."
So today, I got to meet for the very first time Bob Hunt. I know you know him. Your wife
Yes.
Nicole, who comes up in this also in rather fun ways, works with Bob, and I also have the privilege of knowing a lot of people who are close to Bob and know Bob. But today, I actually got to meet him, and Brenton helped connect, and I'm just so pleased with the conversation that we had. Just some really great insight. Bob is a creative at heart, and he talks about just the importance of that within ministry and even the life of the ministry leader. And so we're really, really excited. Anything you want to add to that with this interview?
I've been looking forward to this one, and I was very excited. It was a great time to spend, and I just enjoyed the sense of humor and the
Yes.
instant. It felt like we all knew each other well.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good. So, hey, why don't we've riffed and raffed a little bit. Why don't we jump right into the actual interview? And so let's do it. So without further ado, we are excited for you to hear our conversation with Bob Hunt. Well, we are excited to welcome to the Ministry Without Hating It podcast, Bob Hunt. Bob, welcome. Hopefully this will be an experience you'll never forget.
Sure, I won't.
I'm sure. for all the right reasons.
Just wait. Yeah.
Or the wrong ones.
Can't wait.
And I have to say this. So I've been really looking forward to this. And we talked a little bit before we started recording, Bob. But I know a lot of people who know you really well and speak very highly of you. But you and I have never actually officially met. And so we decided to do it here on the podcast. So thank you for coming on and allowing us this privilege. I'm really looking forward to it.
I don't know anyone that knows you. So,
I know. Yeah, that sounds
not
about
true.
right.
That's not true.
That's amazing.
You're well loved too, Chad.
That's
Well loved
amazing.
too.
No, and that is making it in. That is staying in. That's,
Okay.
That is a solid burn. I already like you. Well, we like to start off by asking questions that have nothing to do with ministry but need to be asked anyways. And so the very first one is, if you were going to sail around the world, what's the name of your boat?
Okay, I'm going to start off real spiritual.
Yeah,
I would call it the Great Commission.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, because I actually have traveled a lot, and I actually was going to sail around the world. Before I got married, a bunch of guys and we had planned to sail around the world. So we were looking at boats. We were doing all kinds of recon. And then I realized I really couldn't sail. I wasn't very good at it. My friends they could sail, but I couldn't. So, but I would love to do that. But if I had a boat and could sail around the world, it would be the Great Commission, Matthew 28, because I really love other countries. Have had the privilege of visiting dozens of different nations and kind of really seeing life as it really is overseas. So that's probably would be the name of the boat. So.
Okay.
And I actually took a boat through the Amazon River for about a month, and then took a canoe through the Amazon River, and it was crazy stories, unbelievable, great time, and but I would like to get a boat someday.
And I would love to say that through my in-depth research, I knew that about you, and that's why I asked this question.
Yeah.
But I had no idea, so that was amazing. Yeah. That was amazing. All right, what's your favorite tradition or holiday?
Hands down, Christmas, and it wasn't always that way. In my life, and when I was younger, it was more trauma than tinsel. I was really more into just kind of surviving. We grew up in an alcoholic family. Christmas was always, chaos and problems. And then I got married to kind of a Hallmark family, and my wife and I didn't know how to handle it the first few years. It was like all this love and mistletoe and all that kind of stuff. And then finally just learning to live with her and her joy and just how much she loved Christmas. And I really got into it. I mean, I have to confess, I even watched some Hallmark Christmas movies here in October, which should revoke my man card immediately.
No, we had to do it too. I mean,
yeah. I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I have to confess that. That's what I can't believe and that was all my wife's doing. And then I made a mistake because I was really into it, where a couple of years ago, I put on Facebook that I have this thing about pink Christmas trees. I don't know why or how, but I put it out there. I just said, I love pink Christmas trees. So people from across the country were sending me pink Christmas trees. I have a man cave, and down in the man cave, I have literally every Christmas tree of the rainbow. I mean, every spectrum of color. But I have that big pink Christmas tree, and then people started sending me ornaments for the pink Christmas tree. It became a thing, still is a thing. I love it. But again, man card probably is going to be revoked.
Wow.
So, but that's what it is.
I feel like the joke writes itself, so I'm not even going to.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I don't know. What is it about podcasts you want to confess everything? So,
well, and we just started. That's the best part.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you have a drop button or whatever it is. You can cancel me out.
Yeah. We'll keep you on for now.
Yeah.
So, what is your favorite then breakfast food?
Well, anything with bacon.
Okay.
If it's got bacon in it, if it's
it's magic.
Bacon and eggs, bacon and biscuits and gravy. I can't. After this podcast, Jameson and I I'm going to have bacon and eggs, and I just for lunch. Breakfast burritos got to have bacon in it. So
yes,
bacon.
There's this house down the street from where I live, and they sell farm fresh bacon and eggs, and like a pound of bacon is $3. And we walk down to this house, and we'll just like drop money in this little tin. It's all on the honor system. You open their little refrigerator out there and just take it right out. So Bob,
it's important to point out that he lives in the middle of nowhere. So that's why he can buy bacon for $3.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard about that.
Yeah. The rest of us have to go to this place. Brenton, it's called a supermarket.
Oh,
and we have to buy bacon for like $10 or something like that. So
well, Bobby,
you slaughter pigs, don't you? I mean, you've got pigs on the farm and everything, don't you?
Not yet, goats, but not pigs. Okay. Yeah.
And their bacon is quite as good.
Okay.
Yeah, goat bacon. I should try that.
All right, moving on. So you have met many leaders, I'm sure. well-known people, who is someone you knew that you were going to meet or you had just met and you were just like, whoa, I just met.
Yeah, Billy Graham.
Okay.
The man.
Okay.
And I had the privilege of being backstage before he was to speak. And I didn't know it, but all of a sudden someone took me up to introduce him to me and me to him. And for about a minute we spoke, but looking at his eyes and the way he just zeroed in on me in that 1 minute, maybe it was 45 seconds. And he just kind of pierced in. It's like he was reading my soul. It was, I know I'm reading too much into it, but it was an amazing experience. And I always thought, I can't wait to meet Jesus, because if it's anything like my experience with Billy Graham, which of course it will be much greater.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you go, wow. And it really it was a few years ago, obviously, but it taught me something about when you meet people. And I think one of the big issues is, when you pastor, it's how you make people feel. It's the Maya Angelou, I think, said something. It's not what you know or what you say to people. It's kind of how you make them feel. Yeah. With Billy Graham, it was that feeling of like, he really cares. There's real compassion, or he wants to know what you're thinking and how you are. And so that really impacted how I meet people. You treat people no matter what they are, who they, what station of life. You just want to connect. And he did that. So hands down, Billy Graham.
Wow.
I also ran into Donna Summers at a John Wimber's church.
Okay.
And I wasn't married at the time. She was sitting right next to me. And I said, this beautiful woman, I wanted to ask her out, and I didn't have the courage. And then someone later tapped me on the shoulder and said, that was Donna Summers. And if I'd have known that, of course, I never would have asked her out. But,
Brenton, do you know who that is?
No idea.
Oh, no.
I do, but I knew he didn't. I'm older than Brenton. That this is, if we're getting in confessionals here. I don't know if you could tell.
Not at all. Not at all, Chad.
Yeah, of course.
Brent looks like he's 12.
Exactly.
I hate him.
Thank you. He's actually tried to grow facial hair. It doesn't work.
But this is about as good as it gets right here. I know for our listening people, they're not going to see that, but I am scratching my face and have
to review, we have Billy Graham, Donna Summer, and now you're here on this podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's just turning up all roses for you. This is good. All right, let's before we pivot, last one. What do you find exciting, or what are you passionate about in life right now?
Really passionate. For me, it's learning how to kind of live in the moment. I've struggled with that my whole life. I tend to be a task person. I go from one task to another. I have a hard time smelling the roses. And, I want to prune them. I don't want to just smell them. And this has been a strange couple of years. 2 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with cancer, colon cancer, advanced cancer, and it rocked our world. And we didn't know what to do. And so obviously pray and go to the doctors and do everything you have to do. But there was something about we've been learning, and she's been teaching me through this. And that's just enjoy every day. Don't take it for granted. To just embrace life and all the things that I'm terrible at, but she's great at. And so it's been a passion of mine to say, okay, how do I really learn to live, especially the way my wife does it in the midst of her struggles. I mean, she's on chemo right now, and it's rough.
Yeah.
And yet she just loves to laugh. We laugh more than we've laughed before, even in our marriage, early in our marriage. We just laugh because we know that life is a gift, and we just need to enjoy it and embrace it. So that's kind of my passion. I didn't mean to get all serious, but that's you asked. So.
No. We're all over the place when it comes to where we're at, whether it's serious or not. No, sure. I 100%. I relate to that. In fact, I was just thinking, a couple of years ago, this past September, our son was in a really, really bad bike accident, and
Wow.
touch and go, had to be airlifted down to the closest hospital that could treat that, was 45 minutes away. Anyway, I was thinking back on that and how it oftentimes takes those kind of things to really, because that came out of the exact same thing. I want to be more present. I want to be I want to be in the
Exactly.
moment, and I want
Yes.
to I don't want to miss this.
Yeah.
So I relate to
No,
that. Thanks
that's
for
good.
sharing that.
Yeah.
I got to watch some of this. I get to watch a lot of these different things from, bird's eye view or from where I sit a lot of times. And this is something that we've been practicing as a family. Even as my parents came in, I'm recognizing that they're starting to get older, and they've been here for a week. I just left everything that was stacking up and said, we got to go for a week and just drop everything and enjoy those moments of being with people. Those are so important. Otherwise,
I know
it's just
that-
go to the next thing.
Yeah, there are people who are Marys or Marthas, and I really lean towards the Martha, and my wife the Mary, and it is a battle, but again, that's something every day that I have to wake up and say, okay, Lord, I really need to just enjoy and embrace the day, and so I'm learning. So you can pray for me.
I want to say thank you for being transparent and sharing that, especially right off the top. And I say our family, like I said, not knowing you, but like I said, knowing others who know you, we have been praying for you and continuing to do so. And so, we're just believing that God's going to continue to do a great work within all of this. And so,
Amen.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to pivot away too much, but
Please.
Yeah, please. All right. The podcast is called Ministry Without Hating It. So we like to ask our guests to kind of set a baseline. What does the word ministry then mean to you?
Well, ministry for me has been a mixed bag. Working here at Foursquare Missions Press, it's been a great privilege. I love it. The thing about working here, it's been doing something that's my passion, that utilizes the giftings that I have. But I came out of the pastorate too, and I've been in the business role, I've been in the pastorate. And let me just tell you, and I'm not kissing up here, but I have such respect for pastors. I don't know how you guys and gals do it, preaching week in and week out. And I don't know if I should say this, but like you said, you can edit this out.
But try us and we'll cut it out if we have to.
Yeah. But I a couple of years ago, I had a family member bring their son to me and say, he's thinking about going into the ministry. What do you think? And could you give him some advice? And before I knew it, what came out on my lips was that, hey man, I love the ministry. It's just the people are a pain. Yeah. And the father, of course, he ushered his son away, like, don't talk to him. He's the wrong guy to talk to. And which, by the way, I got to say, I made the mistake of watching a couple of your podcasts.
Okay. You made the mistake. Good. That's a good way to leave.
Yes. Yeah. The last two, you got Robbie Booth and you got Kimberly Dearman. I mean, these are like saints of God, beautiful souls, wonderful people, caring for people, articulate, and then you invite me on. So I don't understand, but I'll do the best I can.
You're in that list for me of those heroes of the faith.
Yeah,
yeah.
No, it's increasing measure. Yeah, this is
right.
good.
Yeah,
this is good.
$20 will be on its way there. But
right.
no, I just
we've been trying to monetize this, so that's great. That's good to hear.
No, I was listening to the Kimberly interview, Kimberly Dearman, who I do know and adore. She's amazing.
Yeah.
Both Jerry and Kimberly. And I literally thought, I'm going to call them up and say, just cancel me and replay Kimberly. Because that'll be much more effective. It'll bless much more people. But we'll go on here. But so what ministry? So the pastorate, it was always a mixed bag for me. It was very difficult. But the thing that I loved the most in pastorate and ministry was when I was in a senior and associate pastor roles with the 12-step groups. I loved the 12-step people because I felt like they were the groups that were so honest with each other.
Yes.
And I'd go to the meetings, I'd sit in, and I would just be convicted of things I probably needed to share with them, and all kinds of different 12-step groups. And so I thought, this is really ministry. Lives are being transformed here. This is something that I love being a part of. And then Sunday morning would happen, and I feel like, come on, we're a little bit hiding here. Are we really being honest? And yet I realize, you can't just confess everything on Sunday morning. So I get that. But so with ministry, I guess I've learned that, ministry, it's wonderful, but it's scary and it's strange. And yet it's that partnership with the Lord, with all our fears and all our failings, that we just end up saying, God, help me to really work with people and serve them and show them more about Jesus. But I really learned that it's not about having all the answers. If we think pastoring is all about giving people answers, it's really more about, just pointing people to the person that does.
Yeah.
And you've heard the expression, it's like evangelism or our faith is really one beggar talking to another beggar and showing them there's the bread. That's kind of where we're at. So that's ministry to me.
That's good. Well, and I'm really thankful to the way you unpacked that. In fact, when somebody ever asks, what should, I'm thinking about going to the ministry, what do you think I should do? It's like, well, don't, unless you know that right? Because
true,
because it's rough. And, you kind of shared some of, like I said, a little bit of your own journey with that. I'm wondering though, if you could take a step back, because you mentioned the press and what you're doing now. Tell us a little bit about that. I know we're jumping around potentially with some of the questions,
sure.
but tell us a little about that, but then also tell us how you got to where you are with that and where that all came about.
Yeah, I love Foursquare Missions Press, and in a million years, I never would have thought I would be working in what essentially, when I first started, was called a track ministry. And tracks were the last thing that I wanted to be involved in. I had been involved in missions. I had started a short-term missions team, actually a school based on YWAM. I had Lauren Cunningham and John Dawson and all these. I had professors from local seminaries, and we got serious. We trained for 6 months. We went on short-term teams. The whole church was involved. It was life transforming. It was fantastic. And so you come out of that, my experience with that, and then about 26 years ago, had the opportunity. I was asked to take on a ministry because the founder had passed away, but essentially it was tracks. And I just found that they weren't something that I was used to working with. But then I ended up really connecting with the mission field and finding out what the needs were. And I found out this ministry actually had a place. Now, since then, in 26 years, we've evolved into much more sophisticated kinds of, if you will, materials.
Yeah.
And things
when you say
like
tracks, that's the evangelistic tracks, right? You're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Like the chick track type stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Yeah. They reached out to us once, wanted us to print some of their materials. It's not quite our gig.
Okay.
But they have a niche, and I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And
sure.
But so no, we had tracks, but we and the thing I found from the mission field is there's this huge need, still is, for paper. We have a whole tech arm. We have we have a whole next gen arm. But there's still a need for, they want to touch it. They want to, want to get their Bible out and turn the pages. And frankly, everyone says, well, everyone has a cell phone. Yeah, but they can't always download. They don't have the memory capability to download some of the things that are out there. But anyway, so I got into Foursquare Missions Press. I didn't know why at first the Lord had me do it, but then I realized it was really something where all my giftings I felt like were being utilized. And I'll tell you, in ministry, there's nothing greater than when you feel like, okay, Lord, you have prepared me for this.
Yeah.
And because I didn't know where I fit, like getting into ministry, most pastors love the pulpit. That's not my thing. I'm kind of behind the scenes. I'd rather, have a chalkboard and, plan and meet and that kind of thing. But this all kind of fit together with Foursquare Missions Press.
Yeah. Yeah. So then as you have gone about then, and what you are doing is very much ministry. In fact, it's ministry to those who, like you, that are in the pulpit, that are in the local church, that are on the mission field, that type of a thing. How have you then learned to define what success in ministry looks like? Because it's going to look different for you and the way that you're going about it. So then how does that translate?
Yeah, success it's kind of an interesting thing because we tend to always see, especially in the American church, that success is associated with size and numbers, and at the press too. I mean, we're all about how many millions of pieces we get out every year. How many million tracts and books and Bibles and that kind of thing. But I think in ministry as a whole, we want to see success kind of outside the numerical and really focused on the people, on discipleship. And that's really affected what we do at the press. A lot of our materials now are more involved with helping disciple, helping leaders grow and to disciple, because I really see ministry success is, especially in the scripture, it's more about lives transformed. It's about helping a community be on mission. And you think about Jesus pouring his life into 12 men for 3 years, basically, and one of them fell away.
Right.
And that's what he was all about. And I think, there's a kind of a divine blueprint there that if we, for some reason, we think we're too sophisticated or too intellectual or whatever, we get away from that. But I think every pastor, associate pastor, children's pastor, youth pastor needs to have a core of people around them where they're discipling, they're pouring their life into. And with that, hopefully they're then going to duplicate and see ministry grow. There's no shortcuts, bottom line. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's something I believe in.
I think we need to hear it still.
Yeah, I do.
Because you can get so bogged down in the day-to-day that you miss people.
Yeah.
Well, and I really appreciate that you mentioned, because having the same denominational or movement family, we can get kind of caught up in the numbers side of things, and if we're not careful, that becomes our metric of success. And so it's always, healthy is probably the best word, but I think it's also a great perspective to have. Listen, that's actually not why you do what you do. That's not what you were called into this for. I just think that's so good. So thank you.
Good. Yeah. And there is this pressure. I'm not a pastor. I'm in a ministerial role, but I'm not pastoring. And I can see it sometimes. I go to the conventions, I'll go to the conferences, and I'll watch especially the younger pastors talking, and you can almost feel this, not competition, but maybe competition, and,
sure.
and something like, everyone wants to ask, how big is your church?
That's right. That's right.
And so there's a worldview there that somehow we need to shift away from. I'm not sure how to do it. I know that like in Foursquare, the denominations try to platform more churches, not just based on size, but we just have to be very careful, because it really is about raising up people. And I think part of the problem has been over years, we've kind of brought it on ourselves, because we don't really require a lot from the people in the pews, the seats. And I think
Brenton has pews.
Brenton, that's a pew is,
right.
yeah, it's a long bench with, I'm sorry.
He did. He used to.
Yeah, yeah. But and we don't require a lot. So when we do, and we say, okay, to be a disciple, you need to do X, Y, or Z. There's kind of a chafing at that. So.
Well, if you don't mind, unpack that a little bit right there. 'Cause I think that I don't want to just skip over that. I think that's a really important thing, especially when you said we don't require a whole lot, and there's the chafing. What does that look like to you, or how would you, what would you, instead of like saying, well, don't go into the ministry of run, like how would you actually lean into that?
Yeah, you're going to get me in trouble.
Well, here we go.
I think the Bible's just very clear about what it means to be a disciple. Things like sharing your faith with others, serving others. And I know there's a tension between being programmatic about it and organic about it. But again, if you're discipling people, I'll give you a story. I had, within the year recently, had a great conversation with the leaders of the underground church in Iran. These were the top leaders. And this one particular leader was telling me about discipleship in Iran. Everything is underground. If they find out you're a Christian, the consequences go the wide spectrum from being shot to being maybe kicked out of the country or never having a job, that kind of thing. So they wake up every day as Christians thinking, today might be my last day as a believer.
Yeah.
And so this brother is telling me, he's saying, look, Bob, when people come to these underground Bible studies, we have to be very secret about it. We have to be very careful about it. But we get the Bible out, we read maybe 2 or 3 chapters, and then we say, now this next week, do it. Do what those chapters say.
Yeah.
And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what you did.
Yeah.
Now, if we did that in our church today, I'm not a skeptic. I think I love the church. I'm committed and everything else, but there's something, and then he told me the stories, of course, of what people did. They would go literally out and they would go and share the gospel, and how they would do it is they would begin to pray, and they always ask the Lord to show them to the person of peace. And they go 2 by 2, and they literally would walk the streets in Iran. That's very commonplace. People walking the towns. And so they would ask the Holy Spirit to show them who they should talk to. And then they would ask a series of questions that they were trained to do. And in a series of questions, they would find out if the person was open. And if they were at all open, they would invite them to the Bible study. And within maybe a week, even if that person wasn't a Christian, they would still they would read the scripture and say, go do it. They weren't maybe even a believer, and they'd say, go do it. So I just think discipleship is something that we, maybe we could work on a little bit.
Yeah, no, there is definitely something to, I think our biggest issue that we face here in the United States is that of the comfort and we're just not challenged, and we think being persecuted is when somebody doesn't like our Facebook or post something negative to a comment that we made, and that's persecution. It's like you have no idea, you have no idea. Right. And so I agree with you.
One of my favorite books is M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled. I've read it multiple times. He later became a Christian. He wasn't a Christian when he wrote the book, but his opening sentence of the book is just amazing. It says, "Life is difficult. This is a great truth." and he goes on, he says, once we truly understand and accept that life is difficult, then life is no longer as difficult because we embrace it and go about solving the issues. And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of like ministry. Ministry is difficult. And if we don't embrace that, it's like the young man I gave the bad advice to. I said, it's like, ministry is difficult. If you don't understand that and embrace it to a degree, it's going to be hard when it slaps you in the face. Yeah. And you realize, wow, can I do this? Well, it's hard. But if you embrace it and then say, okay, I'm going to work through this, you have to, it's not ministry or anything is hard. You got to work through it. So.
Yeah, I don't actually think you gave bad advice, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I go back to, well, no, I think you do a disservice if you try to sugarcoat and it, everything is blah blah blah, whatever. It's like, no, it is. It's gonna be something, and that's why I say know that you know. Otherwise, you're gonna be fighting against maybe even God's will in some of that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Amen.
I think that's good. That's good. Brenton, you before we had talked, you had said you wanted to talk through something.
Well, yeah. So we were just talking as a family. My parents were in town from Oregon, and I'm here in Indiana, and so they were asking about Bob and who he is, and I said, well, I had an opportunity to sit in on one of the workshops that he taught at the Foursquare Connection this last year, and one of the phrases that you used is that God is the most creative. In talking about creativity and how it needs to be a part of what we do. And before I could even finish, Nicole's my wife, from the other side. I mean, I know Bob, you know
We've
her,
met
but
her, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Good.
But I don't talk about her very much here on the podcast.
She's amazing, by the way.
She's actually sent me notes about that, so maybe you should do
she
that.
said the same thing to me
Yeah.
in chat. She's wounded. But
this is actually
we'll talk off air.
Yeah, it's
We're
an
gonna have her-
intervention.
She's going to be on next month.
That's a spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Intervention.
Brenton,
I love it.
that's a spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So,
Bob,
derailed.
I want to thank you for jumping in on this with Brenton. I just really appreciate that.
We're praying for Brenton. I want you to know that we have a whole prayer group for Brenton right now.
That's good. Anyway, your question. What were you saying?
So from the other room, so we just said, Bob said, but we knew this, that God is the most creative. And Nicole from the other room goes, and Bob's the second.
That's too kind.
And I would agree. And you've got your fingers in a little bit of everything. You paint, you write, you speak, you tell stories through all different types of mediums. Could you spend a few minutes just telling us about creativity and what it means to you and part of how it helps you do ministry without hating it?
That's good.
Yeah, it's interesting because I got a phone call from the president of Foursquare, Randy Remington, about a year ago. And he said, hey, I'd love you to do a workshop at Connection. And I'm thinking, okay, great. What do you want me to do it on? He said, I don't really know, but, bless the pastors. Thanks, Randy. The narrowing it down for me.
Great setup, yes.
Yeah. And then I get a call from Ted Vail, who's the vice president. And he said, well, let's talk through it. And we kind of landed on creativity, which is obviously very broad, but it ended up to be something very special. The workshops really, I think, connected with people. And because creativity, as I began to research it, and I actually started calling people I knew who were very creative. I mean, we're talking people that, one of the brothers on a panel that we had at workshop actually was on The Price is Right. He was a producer. He produced the David Letterman show. Another was an incredible couple comic artists, computer artists, photographers. And I just began to gather information, and I realized, creativity within the church is such an important part. And we miss that because there's this kind of a beauty with that. And we get so utilitarian, I think, at times at churches. Now we put a church in any building, and we don't even think about stained glass. That's anathema.
Yeah.
But hey, beauty but anyway, so I think creativity is being involved in a process where you're bringing a new idea to life, and we're all creative. We're all made in the image of God, who is the ultimate creator. So why wouldn't we have, that kind of gifting? And I know some of us feel like, hey, when I was in line for the giftings, before I was born, God took a coffee break. But we're all gifted, and I think we're created to create. And when we cut that off and we don't create, I think it frustrates us, and I think it impacts negatively our church. So. But the thing is, we got to remember we're all creative, with different giftings and expressions of creativity. Some, are great at original ideas. They're idea people, but then others come in and they add value to the idea, but it's just as creative as the original idea. And then some come and they know how to make that idea a reality. And then others come in and they say, okay, I want to take that idea that you've all created and I want to take it to others. So there's a real creativity and gifting in marketing or branding or things like that. So it's not just painting or worship arts, but creativity can be in baking. I don't know if you've ever seen the Great English Bake Off. I mean,
oh yeah,
talk about pink Christmas trees and strange things I'm into, but I love watching the Great English Bake Off, and they have these amazing creations,
right?
And it's just as creative as anything else we'd want to do. So,
or is it cake? Right?
It's a cake.
It's always, is it cake? Well, so, that's really great, and I love how you actually kind of pulled out how that it's not just one linear thing when it comes to creativity. That everybody actually has a role in the different parts of the process.
Exactly.
Within that, that was so well said. How, speaking to those that lead others or have a team, what would you encourage within that? Because you may have people on your team who may not feel that they're naturally creative, but how do you pull them in to be able to be a part of that process?
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, if you're going to lead and have a dynamic group setting like that, you want people to feel free to give ideas. One of the things I love about the team here at Foursquare Missions Press, and by the way, Nicole is a part of that. By the way, Nicole.
It's a good thing you
Nicole
mentioned
Hill,
it. Because she never gets mentioned on this podcast. So.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
that's why I'm mentioning it right now.
Yeah,
matter of fact, she just texted me about that.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But I used to call her. I kept calling her Faith Hill for the first 2 months. I don't know why, but it was Faith, and I felt terrible. I mean, she's going to get a complex. Yeah. So that, by the way, that's bad for team building. When you call someone the wrong name.
Yeah. But
anyway,
hear her sing though. She's just like
her.
her.
I bet. I love it.
Incredible. It's incredible.
I will make her sing next meeting we have.
Perfect.
But when we get together like that, and I love the team because there's a dynamic where everyone has pretty strong ideas. And I think you really have to allow for that, because if people feel like their ideas don't have meaning, and again, a good leader hopefully is going to bring some of that out. But we try to do that, and I think I'm not really unpacking it the way I want to, but I just feel like creativity is something that it hardly works in a vacuum. You really have to have people around you.
Yeah.
Sitting next to me, Jameson working, and he's one of the most creative people I know, understands tech. And I love saying, hey, what can we do? And he has great ideas that I haven't even thought of. I didn't even know existed. Mm-hmm. And so if I didn't lean on him, if I didn't ask him, if he wasn't a part of a group where we ask each other the questions. One thing I learned when I was in art school, by the way, we would do things, you do a painting, and then you'd sit around and you'd call a critique group. Yeah. And it was brutal. I mean, the things they would say about your art, I mean, I can't repeat. It was horrible. You were eviscerated. You walked out of there, holding back tears, but there was this thing that happened that I learned, and hopefully I don't make people cry here now, but where you want to push the envelope, using an old cliche. You want to be able to do the very best thing. So any idea that you have, whether you're writing a book or you're doing a play or whatever it may be, how do you make it the very best? And when you surround yourself with people that are willing to give their ideas, it does push the envelope forward, and you get hopefully something that really breathes the Spirit of God and blesses the Lord. And that's ultimately what you want to accomplish.
It's funny. And not to be joking, but it kind of can be the same way. But like what you're talking about, though, it's just funny. Like you think of like what actually prepares you also for ministry as well. You're talking about you sit in a group and people are critiquing, and how we can be under the microscope, right, of that kind of a thing. But if we allow it, it can actually, and this is just kind of revelation to me, even as I'm saying it. But like, if we allow it, those critiques, even if they're not meant for good, can actually still shape us in a way that, we begin to either flourish in some ways, or we begin to actually hear, what is actually my creator saying to me within that as well. And it can actually be a real preparatory thing. And if you can create a culture where there's that, not just speaking the truth, but the truth in love kind of a thing, but how we're going to the next, that just can elevate the creativity level within all of them.
Well, if you can have that kind of group where can be an honesty and yet a openness to, say something stupid, which I frequently do. And the team, we've learned to mock each other in love. I don't know if that's in the Bible somewhere, but but we do it, and it truly is in a good way. And so we're able to make mistakes and that kind of thing. But I remember a few years ago, actually 26 years ago, I sat in a room with Mary Lou Kanata. Now, probably before Brenton was born.
Yes,
but,
at least.
At least a few decades. But she is considered to be within children's ministry a legend. She pioneered Christian children TV. She's personally, through her different kinds of ministries, probably led a million kids to Christ. Amazing woman. She came to the press to volunteer. I heard she was there first day. I'm thinking, I have a legend in the house. I've got to meet with her, because I had a burden about reaching children and training children workers. And so I called her in. She was working on we have a conveyor belt, and with the tracks and everything, and it reminded me of I Love Lucy. I won't even ask Brenton if he knows that. But Lucy.
He's got so much
thrown under the bus.
he's got so much homework to do. After
it
this
really
homework.
is.
I do know who both of those are.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
all right.
Good. Okay. Well, I Love Lucy, the candies that were going down the conveyor belt, and she finally couldn't keep up with wrapping them, so she put them in her mouth. And anyway, so Mary Lou thought she was literally getting fired. She was a volunteer. I was going to fire her the first day as a volunteer, but I sat her down and I said, Mary Lou, one of the huge needs that we hear from around the world every year is, what do you have for kids? What do you have for children? And I said, we have some tracks, but it's just not enough. And so ultimately, with Mary Lou, and we developed a team, we created something called the Children's Gospel Box, which, by the way, now is directed beautifully by Natalie Working, Jameson's wife. And in the last 26 years, we've seen well over 1 million kids come to Christ. Wow. We've seen, this is very conservative, 15,000 children workers trained and resourced. It's been an amazing thing, but it started with an idea. It started then with a team. We went back and forth. It could be a little brutal, but then we here's an important thing. Then we tested it on the field. How does this really work? And we made changes and tweaks, and we still do, by the way. So
that's so great. Well, I just love that it's that kind of continual collaboration, I think, is the thing. And you had mentioned earlier, we mock each other in love, and I think the camaraderie portion is something, though, that can easily be overlooked, even within the creativity and the creative process. In fact, I like to go back to, Jesus hung around with 12 dudes. Surely, right? There was that type of thing that was in play. He called them sons of thunder, and there's we can only speculate, right, where that came from. And so it's the stuff like that, like, I think we forget that's the relational piece that actually draws out some of that creativity as well.
Yes, good word.
Yeah, I just think that's so important. And we have here, I'm actually sitting in my office, it doubles as like the conference space, and we have this big, somewhat big conference table I'm looking at right over here. But when I first got here at this church, we started calling it the table of truth, because it was that thing. We come here, we can actually say what we're actually feeling, where we're actually at, or push back on something like, hey, I don't think this is actually a very good idea at all.
That's great.
And then be able to say that. And so it creates that culture of, no, we're going to elevate each other within this, but I'll still have that camaraderie and that relational piece of it. It's
I mean, 12 guys together. Come on.
Right.
Or 13. Things were happening, and it wasn't all kumbaya. Exactly. And I think we need to have that kind of honesty to really grow. That's right. I mean, iron sharpening iron is, fun sometimes.
I wanted to pivot a little bit, but stay within the creativity. Because having the privilege you've had of serving in the role as long as you've had within the press there, you've been able to certainly see the landscape shift dramatically, specifically from the technology perspective. And, also knowing some of the names that you're talking about and some others that have worked with you within that setting there. One of the things I've always appreciated is how the press, like you said from the beginning, even asking those who've come before you, what can we do more of, or how can we grow in? And specifically in pursuit of adapting as technology advances, so to speak. And now we're starting to see the next, I feel like every morning we wake up and there's something new, probably. But as things start to advance, and maybe even speak to some of the stuff with AI that we're starting to see here, and maybe less print, I don't know, where that could be potentially going as well. What opportunities then are you foreseeing for ministry leaders and ministries that they serve as we move forward?
Yeah, first of all, I have to say, because it's really true, and it sounds self-serving, but as we embrace AI and technology, and we've tried to do that incrementally and try to be on the cusp of what things are happening, and they're happening quickly, we're still, when it comes to developing nations, print is still king. It's still the most important medium we can use. And so we have to keep that balance. And I think we've done that pretty well. But we've found that, print is still primary, but we want to stay up with technology because there's so many changes. And the church has been so behind the times. People still think Foursquare Missions Press is me and a couple, I want to say older ladies, at a Gestetner machine, which Brenton will not know about, but it's like an old mimeograph machine, right? And it's like, we're cranking out about 10 tracks a day.
I didn't know what that was either, Brenton.
Oh, okay,
right.
Chad.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. See, I'm kind of young, so
yeah.
Anyway. But
by the way, I'm sitting here at the home, the retirement home. That's where they gave me they gave me some headphones, and I have a cup of pudding, or I think it's applesauce, and I'm about ready. I'm getting hungry looking at it. So. Anyway, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness! But yeah, and you're talking to me about AI. That's the irony of it all, technology. Yeah. But you think about it, the Mormons have roughly 75,000 missionaries out and about right now. 15,000 of those missionaries are digital missionaries.
Oh wow.
And you think what a digital missionary can do, just sitting there in his own home or her own home and communicating. And now with technology, even able to communicate, whether they create an avatar or they create a chat box, something that they could go into and get a group together with Google or some kind of translation. They could go in and create Bibles. They could literally take with technology today, a chapter from the Bible and create images from that, movies from that will come out. So it comes alive. You can kind of virtual reality with the Bible and things like that. So especially with developing nations and closed nations, Muslim nations, I think technology is very important. One of my friends is in Tajikistan, which is incredibly closed. It's in some ways even harder to get in and out of Tajikistan than Afghanistan. But he said, well, Bob, what we really need are satellite dishes for these small little houses they have, because the only teaching we can really get is Christian TV. And then I have a friend who does a video cast thing, whatever, and he does it in Farsi and it goes into Tajikistan and Iran. And but but we have to be open to those things because it's going to be the way of the future. Again, I think print will probably be with us another at least decade. And you know how things are. They're very cyclical. They'll things that, people are buying, vinyl records now.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
So things change, but then they're the same. And, but the U version of the Bible app was downloaded over 500 million times in 1,300 languages. The Jesus Film Project, we use that, by the way. We have solar powered projectors, solar powered Bibles, and we use that particular movie along with the Jesus Film for Children, which is a fantastic re-edit of the movie. And it's been seen in over 2,000 languages. So it's the kind of tools out there that can make a difference. And we really want to be on top of it. By the way, I think Oral Roberts is one of the key components of pushing. I was listening to a speaker at a conference of mission pastors, and they were talking about this very subject. And it was, how is AI going to affect the world of tomorrow? You think about 3 billion people are actively using Facebook around the world. It's just amazing. So,
yeah, I'm not one of them, but that's okay. I'm in, but I'm not. And
you're Instagram, aren't you?
And this might be the oldest sounding thing I've said yet in this interview. So there you go.
You're not getting my pudding cup.
That's okay. Okay. Total side note. I don't know if this is going to make the edit or not.
Okay.
But we have monthly here at the church. We call our senior lunch. It was something we started once we could come out of quarantine a bit and that type of thing. And so it's the first Wednesday of every month, and it's, we rotate and have something different. But today we had, because it's Thanksgiving month, we had turkey dinner and everything. And it's actually become one of my most favorite things that we do is I'm hanging out, we're eating or talking with the senior saints, as you might say. And so all that to say, I already had my pudding today. So thank you.
Good for you. Now, I have to include in this, I had the privilege of when Mary Lou Kanata, she invited me to come to the retirement home where she actually started to live. And she said, would you do a Sunday service? And I was reluctant, but I ended up doing it. It was the greatest experience of my life. But in my church, in the front pew, the average age, and I'm not exaggerating, was about 95.
Oh.
And they were as wide awake and active. And I found out every one of them had sat under Sister Amy Semple McPherson.
Oh, wow.
Every one of them. When I found out about that, I wanted to resign immediately because can you imagine that me, Sister Amy, but they were wonderful. So I all kidding aside, I think senior ministries are fantastic. I love them. And I'm close to going to one myself.
Well, I'm already there. So
well, good to you, Pastor.
Just jump right in. We say it's open to anybody. So they're just they're the honored guests. So good. I think of those that might say, I think you had even said God was on a lunch break or something when it came to handing out the creativity, and those that would actually believe that. I'm not a very creative person by nature, or I wish I could be more creative and grow in that. What would you say to them? Yeah. What would you say?
Yeah, you absolutely can. I'll start with a story. My wife is an attorney, a lawyer, very linear. I'm the artist. We joke, I'm more the woman, she's the man kind of thing. You'll get letters, but
you have
that
a
kind of thing.
Tree. It's fine.
Yeah, okay, there you go. And so, but she decided to take up photography, and so we go out. I would carry the bags. She of all her photographic equipment, and she would go out and take really like 1,000 shots, but inevitably in the time we went out, I would find that one thing. I'd say, hey, honey, why don't you take that shot? And inevitably that would be the money shot. That would be the shot that she'd go, oh man, that's the one you picked. And it's the best shot. And so it's like, honey, it's okay. You're learning. Well, a few years later, she is coming, trips to Iceland and Europe, and she has these amazing photographs that fill our home. And now if I say anything, she just says, shut up and carry the bags. I mean, you're good, honey, but I got this now. And she would be the first to tell you if I can do that, because she did not consider herself creative in the least bit. It is something you can learn. We all make fun of Bob Ross, Bob Ross, the artist with the big afro. He's passed away since, but he would do these, I got to say it, cheesy landscapes. But by the way, he sold one for over $2 million, I think. So anyway,
that's a happy little cloud right there.
I like that cheese. And
or happy little tree.
Yeah.
But he's a big deal here.
Is he really?
He's from this area, from Muncie area. One of the guys in our church, his parents produced the show for Bob Ross.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I actually respect the man, because he really tried to help people who believe they couldn't do a stick man, that they could be creative. So I really think, and one of the things we do in the workshop is go through barriers that people have when it comes to feeling like they can be creative. One of the big things is the comparison zone, I call it. We want to compare ourselves. And in the workbook that I created, and by the way, if anyone wants one, I'm happy to send them one, but I created a workbook, and I have a picture of Bob Ross and Rembrandt juxtaposed with each other. And I have this kind of big header that says, Bob Ross or Rembrandt, you're neither. Don't worry about it. Be yourself, because you're not going to be either one. And you got to learn to be willing to not compare. You got to be willing to kind of push through the critics, and self-criticism is the worst. You got to push through that. And you got to be willing to say, I'm going to try. I'm going to experiment. Like my wife, she was not that good in the beginning, but she became fantastic. And it wasn't natural. It was not a natural gifting. She, again, is not an artistic eye, but she learned how she could be. And I think we all can.
Well, I think it's important to point out, too, that creativity is not limited to one certain medium or even one way of doing something, that there's all kinds of things you can become creative in. One of the things that Brent and I talk about is with this podcast. This has actually become a creative outlet for us in some ways.
Exactly.
Even in I got to prepare some questions and that kind of thing, but it helps me to think creatively, when it comes to how do we approach doing this and that kind of a thing. It kind of in that same line though, and I wonder if you could maybe pull out just a little bit too. And I just realized I did the thing that most pastors do. We're like, all right, so for my last point, and then you go on for another 15 minutes or something like that. When it comes to
by the way, we will have time for an offering.
That's right. We'll be taking a second offering.
Okay, good. All right.
But speaking to having an outlet creatively, can you pull out how you have found that to be so important, especially within the frame of ministry, and how that really should be, as people are growing, let's just say that, in their own creativity, how that becomes just as vital for them as it does implementing that within the ministries?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question, except to say that I think creativity is something that has to be expressed in the local church context. And I feel like if we shut it off, we don't know who or what we might be impacting. I know in the Foursquare movement, we were founded by one of the most creative people in the world. I mean, Sister Amy Semple McPherson. Are you kidding me? She, a woman in the 1920s, creates this beautiful Angelus Temple. I mean, there are clouds in the center of the temple dome, of all things, stained glass windows. She does illustrated sermons in the 20s and 30s and 40s. Charlie Chaplin, the biggest star of the times, was helping her. I mean, she was amazing. And I think that kind of creativity, that DNA that we have, is so important. And I think individuals all play into that. And I think that's one of the things that for the church of the future, we have to be creative because I think we're going to lose the next generation. One of the things about creativity that I think we miss is there's a certain beauty in our faith. And I think, like Handel's Messiah and Michelangelo's The David, these were, biblical things they were trying to express. And there's such a beauty to that. And I think the church needs to express that. And when it does, I think especially young people will come to that, because I think young people are not looking necessarily just for head knowledge, although that's important, but they're looking to experience. And I think beauty and creativity and all the practical things. I mean, whether you take a church and you open it up to, painters, one week you open it up to photographers, or you have people that come and they bring baked goods or whatever it may be. Those kinds of things are what I think, and especially the world. I think the world can appreciate that kind. I find creative people are some of the best people at connecting with people who are outside the faith. There's this kind of universal language that transpires among creative people. And I don't know if I even answered your question, but
No, yes, you did. And I was thinking also too, like the importance of, and forgive me, I'm still working on my butchering these questions, but as far as,
not at all.
as creativity in the life of the leader and how vital that is, just as vital for them as well.
Yeah. I think that's the one thing that is going to be the challenge. I think a lot of leaders, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but they can be also very maybe linear, very, everything's empirical, and there maybe isn't necessarily that creative juices flowing. Many times there are, but I think leaders have to expose themselves. And so in this workbook that I printed up, I literally wrote a letter to pastors in it. And I said, here are all the ways that you could be creative with the church. Yeah. I think one of the things you've got to inspire the church about being creative. You've got to identify people in the church. Even just the idea of identifying people within your body who are good at various things. Again, from baking to photography, writing plays to doing computer work, whatever it may be. And then lifting that up and exposing that and implementing that in the church. There are some amazing ways. Even one pastor had a great idea. We actually did it here. He said, what if we created a replica of the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem, where people then could take their prayers and put them into the wall, and we could use that as one to pray for those prayers, and then hopefully people would feel comfortable to come to the church after doing that, and kind of create a culture of prayer. But that's a creative idea that I think a pastor had an idea of and took it. And I think those kinds of things they're culture changing. They can really impact a church.
Yeah, I have to go back to what you said before. I 100% agree. Creativity is so vital for the future of the church and for ministry, period, because when you think about it, what does it do? It really helps connect on a different level wherever people are, and how that meets them to their creator as well. And so that's so good. That's so good.
Thank you.
Well, Bob, I am so grateful for your time and for your voice and for all that you have contributed in so many different ways, and how you are continuing to offer and create these resources. And we would love to make some type of way available for people to connect with you to get that workbook that you're.
Love it.
That I think that would be. In fact, I want one, so I'm gonna sign up for that.
But I'm happy to send them out. That would be fine. It'd be great.
Okay, so we'll make that available within the show notes as well, and ways to do that. But once again, thank you so much. Please know too, once again, we are standing with you and Heidi in prayer, and like I said, believing for what the continued testimony that God is going to continue to create through all this. And
appreciate that.
Thank you for your time.
All right, God bless you guys. Thank you.
Well, thanks again for joining us for this episode of Ministry Without Hating It. We hope it's helped you take a step further to loving what you do more through the wisdom of others. We want to again thank today's guest, Bob Hunt. Man, I just really, really appreciate his perspective on creativity and implementing that and seeing others become a part of the process as they elevate to really worship their creator as well. If you would like to connect further with Bob or even get that workbook that he mentioned several times in the interview, we've made ways to do so available in this show's episode notes. And if you'd like to connect with us further, support the podcast, or sign up for any show updates, just go to withouthatingit.com to get started. And don't forget to subscribe to Ministry Without Hating It wherever it is that you get your podcast so you don't miss out on our future episode releases. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Chad and I are just jealous because you look like you're 13. It's just,
I was just about to say, same. Like it's so rare that I get to actually give him a hard time. Usually, it's kind of the other way around. Yeah. People pile on me. So the fact that I have somebody here helping me with this, that I almost don't know what to do with myself. It's like, well,
you're welcome.
All right. Well, I'll wrap this up then, Brenton, and we'll get Bob out of here. So. I got lots of thoughts. All right. 3, 2,